Okay. Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to Alida School Industry Talk. Today we have with us Joseph Karasha, a software developer at Microsoft. I'm going to read quickly his biography. Joseph is an experienced developer and architect with over 20 years of experience in technology. He has worked in many growth stage companies. Currently, he works as a cloud solutions architect at Microsoft. And for Microsoft, he did work at Fidelity Investments. And for Fidelity Investments, he did work in a couple of different startups in supply chain, logistics, media, and publishing. So we have approximately 30 minutes where Joseph will tell us more about his career path, and then his day-to-day as a software developer, and then we'll open the floor for a quick Q&A. Okay. Thank you very much for making time for the event, Joseph, and I'll pass the mic to you now.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Good to see so many people huddled together to learn, to get into programming, learn technology. I remember the journey for me about 20 years ago was about the same way most of you are. I am an accidental programmer, so I never intended to be a programmer. In fact, growing up, I had never seen a computer, didn't even know what a computer was until I think my senior year in high school, when my parents decided that when I graduated in Kenya, that I was going to come study in the US, and the school told us we had to learn how to use a computer. So I remember having a family friend who used to work at Olivetti. I don't know if anybody remembers that company called Olivetti back in the day. And he brought me a laptop to actually learn how to type and do stuff with, and that got me a little bit curious. But when I came to the US, I didn't really do anything with computers. Actually, ended up doing corporate finance was my degree. So I studied that, and in my junior year, I was trying to find an internship, but I could not find one. And then I found somebody who was looking, actually an organization that was looking for a nonprofit that was looking for somebody to help them build a database. And that's how I sort of got into programming. It was completely by accident. I couldn't find a job in the field I wanted, but it turned out to be actually one of the best accidents ever. I loved programming. As soon as I touched my first programming book in Visual Basic Script, I was like, wow, this is magic. Man, you can type commands and actually make the computer do stuff. I really enjoyed it. So I don't have a typical CS background. I never went to school for computer science. I just taught myself. I went to Barnes & Noble, Borders bookstore, picked up books, learned how to code, went back to school. This was my junior year, finished my degree in finance, but I knew right away I was never going to work in finance. Like I knew from that day on, I was going to work as a programmer. So that's all I did. Anytime that there was an elective in programming, I took it. I took a Visual Basic class in the winter of, I think it was 98 or 99. And that's what I sort of parlayed into my first career. I remember going for interviews, didn't really know a lot, but I knew a little bit. I knew enough to be able to say the right words and sort of mention the keywords that people are looking for. And I got very lucky. I went to an interview where somebody saw something in me, and that I wasn't even seeing myself at the time. They could see a hunger, they could see a passion, they could see a love for technology, but they knew I was very raw. I didn't really know a lot. And they took me under their wing and they said, you know what, we'll give you a chance. They brought me in, and the journey started for me there. I worked on a startup at the time. We were selling furniture online. And my job was really to sort of build front end stuff. So my job was to debug and fix HTML and CSS issues and some JavaScript issues. But I didn't, to me, that was like, it was good. Like I didn't know a lot, right? So I was like, all right, this is what you want me to do. And I did that job with a passion. Like I would just like, and this is before we had Stack Overflow, right? This is when if you didn't know something, you had to go buy a book and look it up in a book. Like Yahoo and Alta Vista didn't have enough results. So you really had to rely on somebody having fixed an issue for you to actually find it. But I loved it. To me, that trouble, I tell people this, like my passion now is problem solving. And that's where it sort of started. So I developed more front-end code. I started doing what was at the time active server pages. So this is the precursor to ASP.NET. We built a few applications. I learned more. I'll run home and I'll just eat dinner and go on a computer and just program some more and read some more and learn some more. And so I slowly developed from a front-end developer doing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I started doing more, and this is before we had frameworks, by the way. This is not like Angular or React or any of those things. This was like straight HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You actually type it in like line by line. And then I just went and started doing a little bit more backend coding. So we had, at the time, we had to use, we were using SQL Server. It was actually SQL Server 6.5, I think, or 7. I'm dating myself here. But I realized I really enjoyed the bridge between front end and back end. Right? I didn't enjoy doing front end work that much. I was still doing it, and I was still doing it very well, and I was passionate about it. So my work quality never really went down. But I realized I enjoyed more the back end stuff. So I started reading more about back end code. And so I started doing a lot more active server pages, learning more about databases, the database design, talking about SOAP procedures, writing really, really good performance SQL. And that's where I sort of started to build a reputation and a name for myself as a data active, or basically data programmer, right? That's what I did a lot of. I could write very, very good SQL. If we had a trouble performance on our website, people would come to me and say, hey, can you help us look at the SQL, see what's happening here? And I'm just gonna analyze the SQL, see if we get a bad join or something that was breaking the system. And I slowly developed that into more of like expertise in backend programming. So this is before we had APIs and REST and all this stuff. Like if you wanted to write code, you would actually write active data object ADO and write SQL, pass in a command that gets executed straight on the database. So that's how I sort of got into programming, started making a name for myself. Obviously, over time, I slowly evolved. This is the first wave of startups. This is 99, 2000, 2001. Obviously, there's a crash. Everybody loses their job. Most people lost their jobs. I was fortunate. Because I developed this sort of expertise in this area, I sort of hanged on to my job. And I actually remember at the time, I was like, my God, I mean, if this everything fails, what am I going to do? Because I don't enjoy corporate finance work anymore. I didn't want to go to healthcare where all my friends were. So I was fortunate enough to sort of hang on to my job long enough for the economy to sort of rebound. And so what happened there is around 2001, I actually went to work for a small consulting company in Cambridge. And I was working with this guy who was an MIT EE and CS major, just pure passion. I mean, he wrote software in ways that I had never seen software written before. And so I was like, I'm going to pick this guy's brain every single day, learn from him, and just as much as I can see what the hell he's doing that I haven't learned how to do. So the guy like me, again, there's something about like ability. People just seem to, if you're good with people, you'll find opportunities. So the guy, he would share whatever he was doing, and I became like his trusted developer. And so basically, he would come to me and say, "Hey, Joe, we need to do this," and he would work with me. This was so exciting, guys. Like I used to wake up in the morning, I could not get to it. I could not wait to get to work. Like I would be on the train reading my programming books. I would not leave my office until like 7 o'clock at night. On the weekends, I could not wait to I would go to the office and just do work because I enjoyed that work so much more. But also what that allowed me to do, it allowed me to broaden my skills. So this guy, instead of just looking at me as a programmer, he was like, this is my right-hand guy. This guy will do anything. So database work that needed to be done, give it to Joe. We have infrastructure projects. We need to move servers. This is back when we actually wanted to collocate data, build servers, do all that stuff. So the key thing I want to stress here is just a curiosity, right? I want you guys to just be curious and just be willing to learn and just say yes, right? When somebody asks you to do something, just say yes and go figure out how to do it. So I did that for a couple of years. Unfortunately, that business, we had a very flawed business model. We had really like one big client. And so in 2003, things started really becoming hard. The economy hadn't fully recovered. This is after the 01 terrorist attacks. The publishing business sort of went down, and we lost a client that was giving us the most amount of money. So now I was stuck, right? I love what I'm doing. I love this company, but we couldn't really build products enough, right? So I had to really think about what I wanted to do next. So I decided to go join a friend of mine. Actually, the very first manager that had hired me at my first job, he'd gone to work for another small startup, and he recruited me. And I was like, all right, he was paying me more money than this company was paying me. The work was kind of okay. When I got there, I was like, I don't really care for this work that much. But it was interesting because we were trying to actually spin out a product that didn't end up working. So I ended up losing that job anyway. And I was like, all right, now I need stability. So I need to go to a big company now, just become like a software engineer in a big company. So a friend of mine told me about Fidelity. They were hiring. I went in, and now because I have all these skills, I can do databases, I can do system administration, I can do programming. I became very useful to my small team, and actually started out as a contract. It's supposed to be a 3-month contract. Ended up becoming a 12-year stint at this company, just because we built things went well, became full time. I got exposed to a lot of different areas, and I just became more curious, and just learned as much as I could. But always, the thing that always drove me, the thing that always sort of kept me going, is I'm just a curious person by nature. Like if I just love to ask questions. If I'm learning something, I want to understand it. But I also, that could be a double-edged sword, because sometimes what happens is sometimes you learn way too many things, and then you become a bit of a generalist. So I sort of realized that along the way, and I started sort of fine tuning and becoming more of a specialist. So I'll tell you guys the same thing. I'm going to pivot now to the advice I have for you guys, and sort of thinking about how you want to sort of lay out your career. Obviously, be very, very curious, right? We talked about that. I want you guys to believe in yourself, right? There are times when you're going to be learning things and you're like, man, I'm just not getting this stuff fast enough, right? This stuff is just not clicking. Just have faith in yourself and just know that you're actually going to do it. The other thing is just to be patient, right? You can't learn everything overnight. Look at what's happening right now. There's too many skills out there. There's too many things that you need to learn, and you need to pace yourself. So just figure out what you can do right now, and whatever small project you're working on, whatever language you're running, whether it's just front end development and you just want to become good at React or Angular or Vue or whatever the flavor of the month is. But just become good at that one thing and just go as deep as you can. But be patient. Don't try to learn React, Angular, Vue, SQL, machine learning all at the same time, because you would not be able to do that. So it's sort of pace yourself, and then find an area of focus, and then create a goal for yourself. Say, can I become world class at this? Right? If you realize your area of expertise is really front end, you enjoy front end work, can you become a world class React developer or Angular developer or Vue developer, right? Whatever stack you're learning, can you become really, really good at it? And can you contribute back, right? Can you explain to other people? Can you answer questions on Stack Overflow? Can you help your teammates be able to answer those questions? And then another thing that I mentioned earlier is always be willing to learn. Like whatever company you go to, especially when you're new in career, it takes time to sort of figure out what your path is going to look like, right? So just say yes to any opportunity that comes your way. You'll figure stuff out later. Just say yes. Just say, you know what? Yeah, your manager comes to you, says, we have this problem. Can you work on it? Just say yes. Go work on that project. Go figure it out. After some time, you start to realize, okay, what you're really good at, what things come to you easier, what things you're going to sort of work hard towards, and then you sort of develop expertise that way. The last thing I'm going to say to you guys in terms of advice is advice that I was given when I first came to Microsoft. So when I came to Microsoft 5 years ago, my manager at the time, I work for a sales organization, by the way. So I don't work on the engineering side of Microsoft. I'm more on the sales organization, but I work with clients who are moving their stuff to the cloud. So I asked her for like, what advice would you have for me to make me successful at Microsoft? And obviously, there's a rule in sales called always be closing. ABC of sale, always be closing the sale. And she had a modified version of that called always be cobbling, right? Always be cobbling. What that means is you want to be the guy who's always building solutions, right? You want to have a GitHub repo that has like 1,000 repositories of things that you built over time, right? So you always want to be putting together solutions, putting together applications. It doesn't matter if the application makes you money or not. Who cares, right? But you're learning along the way, right? If you're learning front end code, right? Look at how say Amazon does checkout. Right? So you know what? I'm going to try and create a checkout page, just the UI side of it. Create a few things, call an API, do this, throw that code away, right? But always be putting together solutions, because that's how you learn. That's how you become good at that's what will make you a good programmer. So be curious, be focused, always be cobbling, and be patient with yourself, because it takes a while to become a good programmer, and sometimes we lose patience because we're in a hurry to get to a particular point. But it will take time. It will take time, but I believe I've worked with Dauda now for the past year. I know the passion he has for teaching people. I know you guys are getting good information. So I'm going to stop there just so we have a little bit of time for questions. But again, you're doing the right thing, but just work your butt off. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. Very, very wise advice. And I didn't even know that actually you had lived in Cambridge, because I lived in Cambridge for a summer, and it's one of my favorite towns in all the world. Beautiful.
Oh, this is probably the other Cambridge. You're in the UK. I'm talking about Cambridge
Oh no, yeah, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Yes, Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, yeah. My office was on Mass Avenue. So I used to take the train, and I used to live in about an hour by train. It used to take me about an hour and 45 minutes to get to the office. So basically, take two trains, a commuter rail, and the subway, the T. So I was Cambridge. I love Cambridge. Good food. I was right between MIT and Harvard. So you felt smart just by being close to MIT and Harvard. But the food was really good. So very good ambience. Good time to be around that place, by the way.
Yes, it's lovely. A very beautiful area. Thank you. I really like the point you made about network, the importance of a network, and I think that's, even nowadays it's still important, especially for people looking to get into the career ladder as a software developer. So I completely agree with that. And also your point about always be building, or ABC, always be cobbling. So I think that's also very, very important. And that's something that we try to live by. Is one of our ethos, is that knowing the theory is right, but being able to apply the theory into practice is even better. So I completely agree. I was just going to ask you a quick question, then I'll open the floor for Q&As. So,
Sure.
dear friends, dear Red and Ferry, question that I have for you, Joy, is what advice will you give to a junior or a beginner software developer looking to get their first software developer role?
So getting a fast role, and I don't know, I think it feels like the market's a little bit easier right now, right? So I think the most important thing is really to just have an area where you can demonstrate ability, right? Again, this is where I think having a specialty really does give you an entry point. So if you're a front-end developer, right, build something, right, show it to somebody, right, and don't be one of those people that just learns things and can talk through stuff, but you can't put stuff together, right? So network with people, go on Twitter. I have found Twitter to be very, very useful. I'm not on any other social media, but Twitter I found to be extremely useful. I met a lot of people. I think I met Dauda through Twitter. So I think it's really a very, very, very impactful platform. So build stuff and share stuff, and then just be willing to take risks. Guys, I promise you, you're going to go to an interview and you're gonna get rejected. There's no question about that. Like one of my first 2 or 3 interviews, when I went in, the guy was completely blunt and very, very honest with me, very rude, but very honest. He literally almost kicked me out of the building because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. But I was new, right? So don't be afraid to take those risks. So find an area where you feel like you can demonstrate that I know this. Then talk to people, let them know that you know that, and just try it. Just apply, and if you get in, you get in. If you don't take it. It's a big deal. It's not. You'll get rejected, but somewhere along the way, you're gonna find somebody who's gonna see something in you that are gonna believe in you and they're gonna hire you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Does anyone have any questions for Joe? If you do, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
I want to know how do you know what your specialty is? I mean, my major issue is that I've learned like the basics of lots of programming languages, and I love all of them. And someday, some guy asked me and said, like, what are you going to choose? And I was like stuck there for like 15 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to choose? I had never thought about that before. So like, how do you know? How do you know which one to go?
That's a very good question, by the way. So, and I've done this myself. Like, sort of, you're torn between two sides, and you're always like deciding, should I do A or should I do B? Should I do A or should I do B? And most of the time, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. Just pick one, right? Right now, for example, if you're learning, let's say you're learning, if you're learning front end stuff, right? Between Angular and React, doesn't really matter. Pick one and just build something in it. If you're torn between front end and back end, just pick one of those areas and just build something in it, right? Say, you know what, I'm going to start with as a front end developer, or I'm going to start as a back end developer. It doesn't really matter which one you pick, right? You're going to quickly realize whether it's something you're passionate about, or it's something that you're willing to put time into. And again, I've had this debate about passion, and sometimes, you know, passion doesn't manifest at the beginning. Passion can come later, right? Because you put the work into it. When you start to put work into something and become good at it, then you become more passionate. So I'd almost tell you right now, Victoria, pick one. It doesn't matter if there's one language you sort of feel like that might be the language for you. Just put your time and effort into that, and then write that journey. Right? If 6 months from now, a year from now, you've really gone deep in this language and it hasn't paid off, you can switch. But I guarantee you, when you start to go deep in any language, you're going to become valuable to somebody along the way, and that's where you'll get your fast break. So depth, pick one area, it doesn't matter which one, just go deep and then just let things fall where they may.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Next person. Okay, I think that everyone is shy.
Yeah, I have a question.
Hello, hi, hello, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Nice to meet you.
Good evening too. Yeah.
I would like to know if you in the beginning thought about giving up.
Yes. So if you have that feeling, trust me, it's normal. So I when I went to my first interview, I think my first, it was either my first or second interview. When the guy kicked me out of the building, I was like, man, maybe this is not something I should be doing. Maybe I'm not smart enough to actually do this. I remember going to, even after my first job, right, we went through a rough patch where the company was going out of business and we had to leave. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I actually thought about going to healthcare because most of my friends at the time were all becoming LPNs and RNs. And I was like, you know what, maybe that's what I should be doing, right? But something in me just say, just stick with it a little bit longer, right? And then you sort of make it fast. So if you find that you're struggling, you know, I would tell you to just give it a little bit more. You know, just try and find something that you enjoy, that you can enjoy from programming, and just work a little bit harder. Don't give up because you don't think you're good enough, right? Give up because you've done it and you realize this is not for you. Like, I have people give up because they think it's too hard. It's not that hard. Like, if you have the right resources around you and you network with people, you will learn. So yeah, the thought of giving up does come up quite a bit at the beginning because everything seems so daunting. Like, it's so much to learn. There's so many things to do. It's how am I going to get through all this stuff? So that's completely normal. But as long as you're willing to put in the work, I'll just stick with it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other burning question that someone would like to ask?
Excuse me, I think I have a question.
Okay. Hi,
Sure.
hello, Mohammed. Good evening.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Mohammed.
Good evening. Thank you. So my question concerns software engineering and development. I've come across many courses, and most of them you'll find that this is the path for you to become a software engineering, but they always start with HTML, CSS, you know, the web development part. So my question is, does software engineering development always start from HTML, or you can start from somewhere else?
That's a good question. You can start from anywhere you want. Like, so if you think about the field of software in general, like, right, there's UI development, there's middle tier development, there's backend development, and most like database and database access, developing all that, and that's changing a little bit. There's infrastructure and security. So if I think about programming, like software engineering in general, again, there's system engineering, and there's like web application development. There's a lot of different areas. So it really depends on what area you want to go into. If you want to go into web application development, right, the technologies around HTML and CSS are important for you to learn. So you can start there, and they're typically they're easier to introduce, they're easier to learn, right? So if you think that's your work is going to be around web, then yeah, that's a good part to learn. If you become a system developer, you're not really, and you're not doing stuff on the web. Let's say just building like classic fat UIs, right? You don't really need to learn HTML and CSS. There's a whole other language around that you can learn in that space. So it just depends on what you're willing to learn. It just happens to be that front-end development, especially HTML and CSS, a very good introductory concept to teach people when they're learning how to program, because you type something, you refresh a browser, you see the result right away. You don't have to compile a code and then do all these other things. It's just not, you refresh your browser, you see it. So it tends to be easier, but it's not the only path.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And does anyone have any other question?
I have another one.
Okay, yes, please go ahead, Vitaly.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you mentioned that we shouldn't be the type of people who can only talk through but cannot actually put stuff together. How do you deal with when you're not, I mean, like you have the idea in your head, but you can't actually put it together, because like sometimes you feel like, oh, I want to do this, that, do this. And then when you actually want the code, you get that brain block and you can't actually put it together. And then you try, and it doesn't work. How do you deal with that feeling? That feeling of not being able to do something that you actually want to do correctly?
That's where the patience comes in, right? So you have to be patient with yourself. So if I have an idea in my head and I'm trying to put together the code and I can't figure it out, and sometimes you hear people say spinning your wheels, right? It's like you're stuck in mud. You're spinning your wheels, but the car's not moving forward, right? So the best approach there is to reach out to somebody else. And that's why it's so important that you guys are in a class and you have a cohort of people that you're learning with. There's going to be more than one other person that's taking the same class with you, right? So hey, they say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. And then try something first. You say, here's what I've tried and it's not working. What do you think? Am I missing something? How would you approach this? And that discussion, that bubble discussion, will usually unlock another way of thinking that helps you move to that next step. And sometimes in our heads, we feel like this project is so big and you're trying to figure everything out at the same time. You don't have to. You just need to figure out what's that next milestone I need to hit. What's that next step I need to hit, right? For example, you have an application that you're trying to build. Maybe the first step you do is just to wireframe the UI. So you know what? Here's what I think the UI is going to look like, right? And then you build like just one API call that gets data or writes data to a database, right? You don't need to worry about all the complex pieces of the application. So you just kind of build onto the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But collaborating with other people is very important. And that's one of the most important skills, by the way. The soft skills in engineering are understated because we all think about the hard skills, right? The programming, the data structure, the algorithms, all these things. But the soft skills, being able to express your problem clearly, because if you can express your problem clearly, it means you really understand what you're trying to do. And then being able to recruit other people to help you think through your problem, I think is very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's a good way to end session. Thank you. Thank you very much again, Joe, for making time for the event. And yeah, a very, very busy man, so we really appreciate it. And thank you to the attendees as well. Yeah, awesome, and awesome to see so many people, so many beautiful faces. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. Reach out, Dauda, if you're on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter, Joe Karasha.
I sent Dauda a link to my blog. I put a blog together. It's actually the only blog article I've ever written that I've actually published. I've written a few others, but this one I published because I had a lot of questions from a lot of young people that are sort of doing well, but also kind of struggling in tech. And I wanted to just write this thing to let you know that this journey that you're embarking on is not going to be a linear journey. Like it's not going to be this straight shot. Just you go from point A to point B and you're done. There's going to be some setbacks. There's going to be some opportunities. There's going to be some questions you can ask yourself. So Dauda, you can send a link to the blog, to the class. If you have any questions, again, you can feel free to reach out to me. Dauda knows how to get a hold of me. I love what you guys are doing, and I want to empower you and encourage you to keep doing. And you have our support. You have my support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I will share the blog shortly after the event.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Goodbye for now.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.